Good evening, family. Welcome to our December 2025 IKG Wisdom Wednesday. Thank you all for joining us for our presentation for our final presentation for this year. We are so happy that you are here with us. And as always, we do ask that you drop in the chat where you are checking in from so we can give you all a shout out. And it's our way of saying hey to everybody checking in from around the world. As always, let me also let you know of a few housekeeping notes. This is a webinar, so your cameras and audio are automatically off. We do ask that you engage with us utilizing the chat feature. We also will have a Q&A session at the end of the program. So if you have a particular question for our presenter, we do ask that you place it in the Q&A box. So as you all are typing in the chat, I do want to just go over a few announcements. So for those who may be new, IKG Wisdom Wednesday is a monthly lecture series that we now hold here on Zoom, where we have various speakers coming to share information related to Black African history, culture, spirituality, finances, really all areas of people activity. And our goal is to provide information that uplifts us as a people, uplift us individually, our families, our community, and all of us as a whole. So again, we thank you for taking the time to be a part of this presentation as an audience member. And we truly do hope that you continue to learn great things with every session. Before we get started, I want to share a couple of events that's taking place. So, yeah, as you know, we are IKG, and we are founded by and directed by Anthony Browder, and he will be hosting his final Ancient Egypt Light of the World study tour this July 7th through the 21st, 2026. It is a study tour of Egypt with a cruise on the Nile. This will be the last tour directed by Mr. Browder before he passes the torch to his daughter, Atlantis, who will then conduct all future tours. Now, if you're not able to make it in July, there is an Ancient Egypt study tour taking place in December that will be escorted by Anthony Browder. And this tour is designed for returning travelers to Egypt and will highlight select monuments in Egypt. And that event is December 14th through the 23rd, or that tour rather, is December 14th through the 23rd, 2026. You can go to ikgculturalresourcecenter.com to get information about both of the study tours. You can also go to ikgculturalresourcecenter.com to learn more about IKG's programming, the Wisdom Wednesday lecture series, as well as our Egypt on the Potomac field will start up in the spring of next year. So now to before we get to tonight's program, let's see who's in the building. All right, families putting it in the chat. We have, of course, Georgia, Lawrenceville, Georgia, first one in the house. Hotep, peace, welcome. We have Oakland checking in, welcome. Hetepu, we have Decatur, Georgia in the house. Welcome. Adelphi, Maryland. Thank you for joining us. Largo, Maryland. Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. We have Dillon, Florida. Oakland, California. Brooklyn, New York. DC, of course, is always in the house. And yeah, go ahead and put them in the chat. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. So tonight we are so pleased and happy to have with us Dr. Michelle C. Chapman, also known as Iya Omo Olufina, who will speak on mindfulness for the culture, culturally rooted practices for Black family bonding and conscious child rearing. Tonight's program, she will look at what it will look like to return to mindfulness in a way that feels like home, rooted in our culture, our history, our spiritual technologies, and our everyday family life. In this interactive session, Black Mindfulness for the Culture explores culturally relevant mindfulness as a pathway for strengthening family bonding, supporting children's emotional well being, and nurturing values based child rearing practices without separating mindfulness from community, story, rhythm, and relationship. Drawing on social cultural anthropology, healing centered practice, and her work in mindfulness based community learning spaces, tonight she will explore simple, accessible practices families can use right away, before school, during meals, at bedtime, and in moments of stress or conflict. Participants will experience guided practices, reflection prompts, and micro rituals that support calm nervous systems, deeper connection, and more intentional communication across generations. You will leave with practical tools, fresh language, and a culturally affirming framework for bringing mindfulness into the heart of Black family life. And I'm going to now ask for Dr. Chapman to please join us on screen. Welcome. And now I'm going to tell you a little bit about our speaker. Michelle C. Chapman, PhD, Ia Omo Olufina, is a social-cultural anthropologist, associate professor in the Crime, Justice, and Security Studies program at the University of the District of Columbia, and founding director of the Mindfulness and Courageous Action Lab. She is the founder and managing consultant of Integrate Mindfulness, LLC, where she supports individuals and organizations through contemplative practices, leadership development, and healing centered learning experiences grounded in racial justice and wholeness. A longtime mindfulness practitioner, educator, and community engaged scholar, Dr. Chapman's work centers Black well-being, family resistance, youth justice, and culturally rooted approaches to restoration. Named one of the powerful women in the mindfulness movement in 2022 by mindful.org, she has delivered numerous lectures and public talks on using mindfulness to promote social justice awareness. She is also the creator of the Dream Sis Mindful Coloring and Activity Book series, which blends self care and cultural affirmation to support rest, joy, and bold imagining. And you can learn more about her work at michellecchapman.com. So, family, let's put the hearts in the chat and let's give it up and welcome, give a beautiful, warm welcome to our sister, Dr. Chapman. Yes, there go
Thank
the hearts.
you.
Yes.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Asante, Modupwe, Abaraka, all of that. Jitty Jiff, thank you so very much for the warm welcome, the beautiful introduction. It is wonderful. It is a deep honor to be here with you this evening for the final Wisdom Wednesday of this year. So, my hope for this evening is that it is not just a discussion about mindfulness or contemplative approaches, that it isn't just a presentation, but it is an experience. So, we will be doing practices together. We'll be doing practices together. And I hope you can get down with that. So, I was going to ask, all right, who all in here? But now I know because you already put it in the chat. So welcome to everyone from Florida, California, New York, Maryland, DC, and all of the places, Georgia, where you are joining. It is just absolutely lovely to be here with you. So I would like to begin actually with an arrival practice. This is a very standard way that I begin presentations or engagements when I'm sharing information about mindfulness or contemplative approaches. We actually do something together. So I don't know what you did before you logged on this evening. Maybe you just parked the car. Maybe you just got inside of the house. Maybe you are not even home yet. Maybe you just finished making dinner like I did. And maybe you're still a little engaged in that prior thing. I want to invite you into this moment so we can be as fully present and connected as we can possibly be together. Okay? So, with that, I want to invite you, if this is available to you, to sit up nice and tall in your seat. Just assume a posture of wakefulness, but not rigidity. We don't want to stiffen up the body. But we do want to communicate to the mind and the body that we're here, we're awake, and we are attentive. And one of the best ways to do that is to have our spine aligned, nice and tall, our shoulders rolled up and back and down, our chest out and up, as if we're trying to greet the constellations with our heart. And our feet slightly apart, maybe shoulder width apart, not quite, but just uncross your legs, uncross your feet or ankles. And you can place your hands gently on your lap. You can hold your hands if you want, whatever feels comfortable for your hands. Okay? And I invite you to just notice right now where your mind is. Notice how your body feels. If it's available for you, you may close your eyes if that is possible, if that feels good for you in this moment. Or just lower your gaze. You don't have to look at the screen necessarily right now. I'm going to walk us through a simple arrival practice. And we're slowing the body down. We're slowing down the nervous system. We're slowing down our heart rate. We're slowing down our breath. Now allow yourself to take a nice deep inhalation through your nose, bringing the air down to your belly, down to your diaphragm. Fill up that belly as much as you can. Hold that breath a moment, and then exhale. Again, inhale deeply and slowly through your nose, filling up the belly. Exhale and drop your shoulders in case they've inched up to your ears. Just let them rest. Once more, inhale through your nose. Hold that breath for a moment. As you exhale, release the brow. Sometimes we have a little wrinkle, or our brow is furrowed, or our jaw is tight. Release your jaw, release your brow. Allow your body to rest. Allow your body and your face to be a little soft. There's no need for armor in this moment. We can rest in the virtual presence of one another. And as best you can, invite the quality of curiosity. Invite the quality of non-judgment towards yourself or anyone else. Invite the quality of gentleness. And we'll do one last deep breath and then awaken fully so we can re-engage. Inhale, hold, and exhale. And just notice how your body feels. Notice if your body wants to move a little bit. You may want to stretch. You may want to wiggle to awaken yourself. As you are doing that, I'm going to pull some slides up here. And just thank you again for spending this Wednesday evening with me. I am so incredibly grateful. Hold on, slides are not where I want them to be. So, I'm going to try that again. All right, this is where we want to be. Okay, y'all with me? You doing okay? How was that brief practice? How was that brief practice? Let me know. You can send a heart or put a comment in the chat. Let me know how that brief practice was for you. Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, these slides want to do what they want to do, and you just have to see everything. All right. Try it one more time. Start these slides from the beginning. Here we go. All right. Cooking with gas now. So what I want to share this evening is mindfulness for the culture. Culturally rooted practices for Black family bonding and conscious child rearing. I know y'all already know about conscious child rearing, but I want to share how mindfulness practices or contemplative practices or inner approaches can really support what you're already doing with your children, with the young people in your family. So we already heard the description for the session. It is going to be interactive as much as we possibly can in this format, or experiential at least, right? We'll be doing some things together. And as my sister stated, I work a lot with Black families. I am really a proponent of emotional intelligence and family well-being. That's really something that I hold very dear to me. I've worked with families and youth in DC, in the Gambia, West Africa, and many other places. And that work is just deep work. It's ancestral work, right? It's work that's going to take us into the next generation and then the next. So I'm really honored to just share a little bit of what I've experienced over the years, what I've learned, and what I've offered in the various spaces that I've worked. So we've done our arrival practice. So thank you so much for doing that. And I want to remind you that at any time during this presentation, at almost any time during your day, you can return to an arrival practice. You can arrive again and again and again by taking a breath. Someone asks you a question and you aren't sure. If someone comes at you in a way that just doesn't feel quite right, you know what I mean? It feels a little bit off. Take a breath, right? If you are becoming overwhelmed with emotion or feeling nervous or anxious or confused about something, we always have the gift of breath. And it can really make a tremendous impact in what happens next, right? Just taking that deep breath. So, mindfulness is who we are. In the description of this session, I say it reads something like, what if we could return to mindfulness? And I say return because I really believe that mindfulness is who we are. It takes many forms, but it's who we are as African people, as African descended people, African American people, however you identify. Mindfulness is ritual. It is pouring libation. It is greeting the sun when you wake up. It is greeting your ancestor altar when you wake up. It is sitting quietly. It is taking a walk through the park. It is grooving to Fela. It is cooking for your family. Mindfulness is not necessarily separated from the activities that we do on a daily basis. It is something that can enhance the activities that we do. It is something that can deepen our presence and our engagement and our connection in the moment. So I really believe that it is who we are. And when we look at those glorious images of our Kemetic ancestors and ancestors from different parts of the continent, we see them sitting so strong and proud. They are being mindful, right? They are being mindful because it is a way of being. It's not just a practice, it is a way of being. In this context, in the U.S. context, the mindfulness that you hear talked about and on magazine covers all over is typically the mindfulness that has been, I will say, borrowed, some might say co-opted from Eastern traditions. But we know that the ancient Egyptians, the Kemetic people, had their own mindfulness practice. We have Kemetic yoga. We have ways of connecting to the body that are very ancient, that are very old, and that are not necessarily called mindfulness because it is so deeply integrated into the way that people were. As I said, a way of being. So it wasn't called something, right? It's just the way that people were taught, the way they taught their children, the way they reared their children. In the U.S. context, though, the mindfulness that we're talking about most commonly is the one popularized by Dr. John Kabat-Zinn, who created MBSR, mindfulness-based stress reduction, as a modality to support people suffering from illness and chronic pain for whom medication was not necessarily effective. So mindfulness-based stress reduction is sort of a secularized version of mindfulness. It's been sort of lifted up and out of its Eastern traditional context as a program that is usually offered in about 12 weeks that you can train people in and get a certificate in and offer in various contexts, professional contexts, educational contexts. Mindfulness programs are now offered broadly across the U.S. and other countries in schools, in hospitals, in colleges and universities, and in a number of settings. So it's not just about managing pain, but supporting our deep presence and engagement as well. There's lots of research that talks about the benefits of mindfulness in its ability to help us manage challenging emotions, calm the nervous system and improve our overall well-being, support focus and concentration, which is where it is particularly useful in the educational context, and also support compassion and empathy. Support compassion and empathy. When we engage in a regular mindfulness practice, very similar to what we did at the beginning of this presentation, stopping, slowing down, tending to the breath, paying attention to the body, the external environment with gentleness, curiosity, non-judgment, we actually retrain our brain. We train our brain in a different way to respond to stressful stimuli. And we support the hippocampus in retaining information, which is why it's really useful to incorporate into educational spaces. Now, typically, when you maybe go to the grocery store or a bookstore and you see mindfulness on the cover of a magazine, it looks very much like this, right? There's not a lot of diversity. At least there wasn't several years ago. It's increasing now. There wasn't a lot of diversity in terms of what mindfulness looked like and who mindfulness was for. And I would bet you that if you typed into your search engine right now, mindfulness, you would retrieve, or what would come up are several images of white women in yoga positions or doing something very similar to this woman in the upper right corner of my screen. But as I said, mindfulness looks a lot of different ways, and I happen to believe that for African people, for our community, it needs to look a particular way and have some different tenets deeply integrated into it. So what is that? What is mindfulness for the culture? Where mindfulness, we know it's a way of being. We can say that it is a form of meditation. It's the practice of paying attention to our inner and our outer world. So not just what's happening within us, but what is happening around us with gentleness, openness, and curiosity. And I'll be honest, it's not always easy to do this as an African person in the U.S. context. It's not always easy to hold an attitude of gentleness. It's not always easy to hold an attitude of openness because we are so often on the defensive, as we need to be in this particular cultural context. But we must consider the cause, or I should say, the impact that this constant guardedness has on our nervous system, on our body, right? The epigenetics, how it shows up in terms of our immune system and our ability to ward off illness. And so it is really useful to have a way of approaching mindfulness and engaging in mindfulness that is restorative and nurturing, and that really serves us. That really serves us. So mindfulness for the culture are inner approaches that awaken and activate our wholeness, our freedom, our sacredness, our healing, and our joy. And they are pursued with openness, curiosity, gentleness, and presence. So they are inner approaches that awaken our wholeness. We are born whole. We may go through family situations and so forth, but we are born whole. The spiritual tradition that I practice says that we are born whole. We have divinity on our heads. We are sacred beings. Mindfulness should support our liberation and our freedom, our ability to express ourselves and to provide for our families, to be who we fully are. We are sacred. We are not just human beings, but we have divine intelligence within us. We are born with it. Mindfulness should facilitate our healing, the coming together of our full selves, allowing us to have whole and happy and healed families who have a clear understanding about who we are as powerful beings. And mindfulness should allow us to access our joy. The images that you'll see in this presentation come from a trip that I took to Ghana with 5 other African women, Black women. They also come from my mindfulness coloring book series that is centered around Black families, and a couple of other places as well. Nappy.co is a company that I use for images because it's all images of Black and brown people, like this image of this beautiful, beautiful child. So as I said, we're going to do a lot of practices, okay? Because mindfulness itself is a practice. It changes moment to moment, right? And you could do the same practice 4 or 5 times throughout the day, but it may look different every time you do it, depending on the context, depending on where you are, depending on what's going on inside of you or in your environment, and that's absolutely fine. So we're going to do a little movement right now. Now, I know you all grew to that Fela song. I did too. I got my dance on before we began. But we're going to do a few simple stretches. And this is why this is important. I started sharing mindfulness and contemplative approaches early in my career as an educator at the University of the District of Columbia here in D.C., my alma mater. Go Firebirds. And I began doing that because I noticed how stressed my students were. Our student body is largely a non-traditional student population. Our students work full time. They have parents that they're giving care for. They have children. Just very, very demanding lives. And in order for students, or in order for any learner to really access new information and to engage deeply with that information, they must feel safe in their body and feel safe in the learning environment. And I also know from my work with young people in DC and in other places, a lot of our young people do not feel safe. And they have every right to. They are over-policed in schools and in their communities. They are treated more harshly in school systems oftentimes. You can look at the statistics around suspension and expulsion for Black students as compared to other demographics of students. And Black girls and Black boys as young as kindergarten, 5 and 6 years old, are suspended and expelled from school at 3, 4, and 5 times the rate of kids the same age from other racial and cultural backgrounds. Now that makes no sense. So our young people are often feeling very stressed and tense in their bodies from very young. So I believe it is really important for us to return to the body throughout the day, to nurture the body, to remind ourselves that we can feel safe in our bodies. So with that, let's do another brief practice. I invite you to listen to the wisdom of your body. Now, you know what aches and what is tender and what is sensitive. These are not necessarily very strenuous activities, but again, you know your body. And you can just follow along with me. And as we do this, tune in to what's happening in your body. Tune in also to the inner dialogue that you are having about your body. Too often, we are critical and judgmental of ourselves, and we can't even enjoy the experience. So I want to invite you to just be aware of that as we are doing these few practices. Okay? Is that all right with everybody? I hope it is. I hope it is. All right. So note your environment. You may not be able to stretch out fully, and that is all right. You can make these movements as small or as big as you want to. Take up as much space as you want, or you can limit your space. All right? So we're just going to lift up our arms. On the count of 3, we're going to lift them up and we're going to lower them. But I want to invite you to go as slowly as you can. Okay? Go slowly. So 1, 2, 3. I'm going to just lift up my arms like this. Notice your breathing. Do not hold your breath. Lift up your arms. And now, if you feel ready, lower your arms. Beautiful, slow, intentional, meditative movement. On the count of 3, roll your shoulders forward. 1, 2, 3. Roll the shoulders forward, up to the ears and forward. Notice what feels tense or tight. Be gentle with yourself. Now on the count of 3, roll the shoulders back. 1, 2, 3. Shoulders up to the ears, back and down. Take a pause and a deep breath. Note if there's any difference from just that little bit of movement that you've done. Now let's do a neck roll to the right on the count of 3. Again, be very slow and intentional and careful so you don't injure yourself. Okay? So on the count of 3, a small roll, 1, 2, 3 to the right. And we'll bring that around, 1, 2, 3 to the left. May we feel safe and alive in our bodies. On a count of 3, we'll lean to the right, whatever that looks like for you. 1, 2, 3. Lean to the right. Take a breath. 1, 2, 3. A slow, deliberate lean to the left. Take a breath. And come back to center. And now I'd like you to push the balls of your feet into the floor if you are seated. You'll feel the movement maybe in your thighs and in your knees. Just push down. And now wiggle your toes. Wiggle your toes. A little movement really does our body good. And intentional deep breathing does our body good. You know, we take about 20,000 breaths per day. About 20,000 breaths per day. Now, of course, that is dependent upon a lot of things. Air quality, whether we have some respiratory concerns. It depends, just on our overall state of health, whether we have asthma or other things happening with our bodies. But how often do we take intentional breaths? How many of those breaths do we actually give our loving attention and gratitude to? Hardly any, unless you're doing some kind of mindfulness meditation practice or some other sort of physically challenging activity. And how often do we actually take a moment to just stretch our body, right? We abuse our body throughout the day. We are moving, we're doing the things that we have to do. And this is one of the ways in which I think we sort of adopt this Eurocentric abusive attitude towards our being. When we fracture the relationship between the mind, the body, the spirit. It is all integrated. It's all together. So the mind and the body and the spirit, they're all in service to one another. And all of those elements are in service to our destiny, to our higher purpose, right? To our character development, our iwa puele. So it is good to pay attention to the body, to give the body some rest, to give the body some movement and stretching, and to allow it to feel good. We move through these spaces, our employment or our community, unconsciously really tense, really rigid. That isn't good for us. So I invite you, I implore you to take time throughout your day to tune in, and teach your children and grandchildren and other family members to do the same. Maybe you can identify a few times throughout the day where you're just going to tune in and say, okay, how am I feeling? What does my body need right now? Do I need to stretch? Do I need water? Do I need to close my eyes for a few minutes? Do I need to put my phone down? Do I need to step outside? I wonder how many of you would respond affirmatively to the question if I asked, how many of you sort of skip meals throughout the day? Or the day goes by and you realize, oh, I've been inside all day. I haven't even stepped foot outdoors. We need to do those things. Or, here's a very common one. I have not had water all day, right? We can't do that to ourselves. So for me, mindfulness is about all of those things. It's tending to the body. It's tending to the state of our mind, the quality of our thoughts. And it is tending to the spirit that is us. That is mindfulness for the culture. So my Dream Sis Mindful Coloring and Activity book series started as a passion project for Black women. It started as just something fun to do and a way for me to bring mindfulness, personal development, dreaming, imagination, rest, and joy to Black women. And I now have 3 volumes. The most recent volume is a family fun focused edition. And at the beginning of every Dream Sis Mindful Coloring and Activity book is a dedication page where I invite you to write down the names of elders or ancestors, because this too is a mindfulness practice, and it is a very culturally relevant practice for us. So in this moment, I want to invite you to bring to mind an elder or an ancestor who taught you how to dream. Someone who allowed you to have an expansive view of yourself and the possibilities available for you. Who is that person? Bring them to mind and bring them also to heart. In the image below is a photo of me, and I can't move this thing here. Oh, maybe I can. Oh, look at me now. All right. It is an image of me at the night of my high school prom, 1986. My mom is next to me. She is now an ancestor, Ibara Tarun Barbara Lawrence Coghill Jordan. Seated is my grandmother, Ibara Tarun Evelyn Spinks Lawrence, and my little sister. My grandmother was a tremendous force in my life. I mean, tremendous. When I was younger, she lived in Camden, New Jersey, and I lived in D.C. with my family. And maybe around the age of 10 or 11, we started corresponding through handwritten letters. And I still have several of those letters today. But it is one of the early practices that taught me mindfulness. I would reread those letters. I would study her handwriting. I would study her vocabulary. And I would respond with a letter. And sometimes we didn't have an envelope. We didn't have money to buy an envelope. I would make an envelope with the 3-ring paper out of my notebook from school, get a stamp, and mail it to my grandmother. It taught me patience, right? It taught me to slow down. It taught me to value the written word. It inspired my imagination. I heard her voice as I read those letters. And I have a family relic that I can pass on to my daughter if I want. Incredibly valuable. My grandmother's own handwriting. So that's another reason why in my coloring books I have a number of writing exercises and prompts. Because something happens in the brain when we write things down. We are better able to retain information. We are better able to understand complex ideas and abstractions and concepts. Something happens when we write things down in a way that doesn't happen when we take notes in our phone or even when we type on a laptop or a PC. So I invite you to continue to bring to mind and heart for the duration of this presentation and even beyond the people in your life, the ancestors or the elders who taught you how to dream, the ones whose strength and wisdom and resilience you honor and you see in yourself. This is also a practice that we can do with our young ones in our family, right? We can choose a time every week to just honor an ancestor in our family, honor an elder in our family. This is what African people do. And I think it's something we need to do a whole lot more of. This is another practice. This is something that you can do with your children when they come home from school. You can do this before mealtime. Perhaps if you say a prayer or grace or something. It's just another really simple practice that allows you to slow down. Something else, our bodies we take for granted, but we are always using these fingers, right? We are always using these hands to type, to text, to write, to drive, to cook, to move things, right? All the time. So this is a really simple practice, and it is also something that helps us connect with our breath and practice our deep breathing. And it goes very simply like this. You hold up one hand, and then you inhale as you allow your finger to travel up to the top of a finger. You inhale, you exhale down. Inhale up, exhale down. Inhale up, exhale down. And you do that for one hand, and then you switch and do the other hand. If you're feeling nervous, I've done this a lot with children when they're feeling nervous or a little bit anxious. They can do this take 5 practice. It becomes a take 10 practice when you do it on both hands. The great thing about this practice is you can do it in a very sort of concealed way. You can have your hands in your lap and you're doing the take 5 practice. No one will even know. You don't have to hold your hands up like this, right? You can just be very discreet with the practice. And what you're doing is you are restoring yourself with breath, with movement, and with connection to your own body. We know that touch is very restorative. Touch is very healing. So again, as you are recalling family elders, I hope that you will also, if it is possible, take time to visit those elders and hug them, love up on them. Because nurturing touch, loving touch, is good for the body. It's good for the nervous system, right? It releases chemicals and hormones in the bloodstream that actually helps us feel good. Oxytocin. So the take 5 practice is something else that you can do with your children. There are a lot of benefits to mindfulness, as I said before. Engaging in a regular mindfulness practice actually helps you become more mindful. It supports increased attention and focus because it is training the brain, right? It is training the brain's response system. It lowers anxiety, depression, and burnout. This particular study was done with educators to see if stressed educators also stress out their students. And in this particular study, they took saliva samples of teachers and also of students. And teachers that had higher cortisol levels in their saliva, it was replicated in students. And we know this, right? As African people, we know that energy is everything, and everything is energy. So if you walk into a space and you are stressed and you are amped up, you are going to affect the people in that space. And if you walk into a space and you're chill and there's a whole lot of anxious, nervous, elevated energy in that space, it's going to affect your nervous system. So this study was surprising for teachers because, I guess folks didn't recognize that when you're a stressed educator and you're the one sort of in charge in the room, you're setting the tone for the room. You walk in all stressed out, you're going to stress out these children. What are they going to learn? Right? That's not going to be a nurturing, restorative, engaging learning environment. So as an educator, it's really important to me, and as a parent, it's really important to me that we check ourselves constantly, especially when we are engaging with these babies, with these young ones. Yeah. So we can do that from the highest position and the most grounded position that we possibly can. So stress is contagious. Just like good, elevated, uplifted energy, it is contagious. A regular mindfulness practice can increase our compassion and empathy. There's been a number of studies done on inmates who engaged in a regular mindfulness practice, and MRI results showed improvements in the regions of their brain responsible for empathy and compassion, right? Those pro-social behaviors. And all of that combined can help us be more joyful and support our well-being, even in a very stressful, larger context. So it's important that we have practices in our household, in our family, that restore and nurture us. It's important that we don't allow the madness that happens outside of our home, although we are affected by it, to dominate and regulate our home. Our homes need to be places of peace, connection, and restoration. My mother loved feeding birds. I grew up in Northwest DC in a high-rise apartment, and I remember as a little girl, we would take the old bread, stale bread that we would have, and muffins and things like that, and we would put it in a bag and walk down the street and feed the pigeons in the local park. It was something that she just liked to do. That was an early practice in mindfulness and contemplative approaches and connecting with nature. Through that practice and through other such practices, taking walks in nature, going to a park, observing animals and trees and flowers and bodies of water, we learn the skills of observation and awareness. And we also learn that we are deeply interconnected with the natural world. We are the natural world. Again, these are very significant teachings for African people, where our survival and our thrival really is dependent upon the natural world. So this image comes from the Dream Sis family coloring book, and it is a remembrance of my mom, and it's an invitation to think about what are the ways that you contribute to nature. What are the ways that you contribute to nature? Maybe you have a family garden, or maybe you have pets, or maybe you do something else in nature. But I think it's really important for our young people to understand their relationship to the natural world, to see themselves as part of the natural world, and to express their agency and taking care of the natural world. This practice was shared with me by one of my colleagues. She's an attorney named Rhonda McGee. And I have an image here of my daughter and a colleague. And this is a very quick story that I want to tell. Storytelling is actually a really powerful mindfulness practice, because a good story can bring us into the moment. Now, I don't know if I'm the best storyteller, but I got a lot of stories. When my daughter was young, as you can see in this image, she has natural hair. We believe in natural hair around here. When she was younger, I was about to do her hair one day. I was about to comb out some braids. And I wore natural hair for several years as a young person, but my mother didn't grow up with the same sort of teaching that I had. And so she chemically processed my hair when I was an early teen. But even as part of the chemical process, before you do that, your hair is natural, you got to comb it out and all of that stuff. And my mother was very heavy-handed. So getting my hair done was sometimes a very painful process. I vowed to be gentle with my daughter's hair. You know, I'm a conscious African woman, right? And I know all about family trauma, historical trauma, and all of that stuff, right? And I also know that doing hair is a really sacred time to bond with your children, and it's important that you know, be in a good place and pass down good energy and really communicate this love and nurturing to them as you're doing their hair. Well, I was about to do my daughter's hair. She was maybe 4 or 5 at the time. And she said to me, "Mommy, before we start, can we take some deep breaths?" The child blew me away, and she taught me something. She asked to take those deep breaths to help me get centered before I took my angry, anxious, overwhelmed energy into that child's hair and on her head. She wasn't just saying, let's take a deep breath, because she knows that I talk about this stuff and I do this stuff all the time, but she understood that it would allow me to just take a beat so I could get myself together before I touched my child. Our children are sacred. And they learn not just by what we say, but what we do. They learn through the energy that we bring into our encounters with them. And so I'll always be grateful to for that lesson from my daughter, and that reminder to just wait, take a minute, stop. And so this stop practice stands for stop. Really, just literally stop what you're doing. Take a couple of breaths to reconnect the mind, the body, the spirit. Observe how you're feeling. And you can do this without judging or beating up on yourself, right? But a lot of times we take the anger, the anxiety, the frustration from a prior moment and bring it into a new moment. And it is displaced. And it does not serve that moment. Whether it is an encounter with our loved one or you know, even with our, you know, our boss or whoever, our supervisor at work. So it's really important for us to stop and observe, where's my mind? Where's my energy? Where's my spirit? And after we do that check-in, we can proceed with more awareness. Now, that doesn't mean that that prior moment is over, right? Maybe that prior moment was a challenging moment and we aren't done processing it. We're still emotionally caught up in that moment. But we can still move forward with more awareness around where we are, right? We can bring that into conscious awareness. All of my coloring books include affirmations. So I invite you to this affirmation now. And there's even a singing affirmation practice in the first 2 books, Dream Sis, for the grown women and for teenage girls. It's important that we remember, even when we are in hostile times and environments, that we are surrounded by love and we are engulfed in grace. Or whatever affirmation works for you, teach powerful affirmations to your children. Recite affirmations with them in the morning before they go to school or at night before they go to bed, right? Give them additional language that feeds them and that fuels them because they will need it. I'm surrounded by love. I am engulfed in grace. And this is going to be my last slide so we can get to some Q&A and hopefully some dialogue. I would love your support. If you'd like to check out Dream Sis, you can go to dreamsis.store and order copies. There are samples of some of the images in the book. I also have a Winter Solstice virtual retreat coming up for women on Sunday, December the 21st. I'll drop the link in the chat in case you'd like to register for that. It would be wonderful to have you. And you can follow me on Instagram at Dr_JustBlackJoy. My website is michellechapman.com, or you can email me at docmchapman Gmail if you have any questions or want any information. I do speaking engagements, I do trainings and workshops and so forth. I'm here to serve. I love my people. I love my people. I want us to be healthy and well and to operate in our power and to teach our children how to do the same. Thank you so very much for your time. I'm going to stop sharing. I don't know what time it is or how I'm doing with time. My sister can let me know. And let's get to maybe a few questions. Maybe we'll do a quick little practice before we transition into the questions.
Great. Well, you're wonderful that you can see the claps and the loves, the hearts are coming through. Thank you all for the comments in the chat. So yes, we're going to move into our Q&A. So if
Awesome.
you do have questions, please place them in the Q&A box. I think it would be great, Dr. Chapman, to do an exercise as we transition into the Q&A. So I'll
Wonderful.
turn it back over.
Wonderful. We can do that. All right. Get comfortable. Get comfortable. I'm going to share with you the singing practice that is in DreamSys. It is an affirmation that I created. It is the I am affirmation. I'm going to put the words in the chat right here. I am here. I am safe. I am worthy. I am enough. These four statements are like the pillar of my being. For me, they cover everything. When I walk into a place and I'm not sure that I belong there, or I'm not certain that my credentials will hold up with other people's credentials, or I'm not certain that my skills, I am here. I'm safe in my body. I'm safe because I walk with ancestors and divinities that love me and protect me. I am worthy of every good thing, of every opportunity, and I am enough to meet this moment and whatever this experience, challenge, or opportunity holds for me. I am enough. So I want to share that practice with you. Now, I've been talking, so the voice is not going to be super strong, but I'll do my best, okay? I invite you to close your eyes if you're able to do that, or lower your gaze. And I'd really like you to just feel into this practice, like feel these words. Take them into your spirit. I am here. And I am safe. I am worthy. I am enough. I am here. And I am safe. I am worthy. I am enough. I am here. And I am safe. I am worthy. I am enough. And you are here. and you are saved. You are worthy, and you are enough. Yes, you are enough. We are here. Our ancestors are here. We are safe in the company of one another, in the knowledge of who we are and whose we are. We are worthy of every good thing: health, freedom, joy, satisfying relationships, prosperity, protection, travel, everything. And we are enough, irrespective of degrees or zip code or health conditions. We are enough. I hope that you take that in. I'll share the link to the recorded practice that sounds a lot better than I just did. And I hope that you will listen often and share it. Share it with others. Modupwe Madasi. Thank you.
Mandasi, sis. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Please, again, in the chat, please share our appreciation for tonight's wonderful, wonderful presentation. You did that. Like the energy has definitely shifted and
Oh, thank you.
definitely in a different space. So thank you for bringing us here. And I want to start off our Q&A. We'll take about three or so, 3 to 5 questions. So please, again, family, put your questions in the chat. I want us to go back. You were talking about how mindfulness is in everything that we do, right? The rituals that we have. It may not be called mindfulness, but it's in what we do. And I love how you brought in your family picture. And when we think about our ancestors, our people right here, uh, that we've known, that's the traditions and practices that we've established here, how might mindfulness look in ways that maybe we haven't thought about, like Big Mama, Grandpa, traditions and ways of being that we grew up in
Yes.
that were evidence of mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
It might not have been called mindfulness,
Mm-hmm.
but it was ways that we found to heal ourselves,
Yes.
to center and restore ourselves.
Yes.
As I'm saying and asking this question, ideas are coming to my mind, but I would love to hear from you. Um, and I'm asking this question in a way for it to be empowering for ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
that we have this, as you said, within us,
Yes.
and it's a part of us. And if you can kind of lift up some of those ways that uh, we've been maintaining mindfulness.
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. It's a wonderful question. My grandmother was a deeply Christian woman, and she would get up early in the morning, crack of dawn early, and sit with her Bible and meditate and pray and watch the sunrise. Mindfulness practice. My grandmother made the best biscuits ever. She did some chemistry in that kitchen. Mindfulness. In the evenings, we would sit on the porch and tell stories and listen to music and sometimes just watch people go by and say hi to people. Mindfulness. Because remember, mindfulness is being present with non-judgment, openness, and curiosity, with gentleness. So it can be spending time in your garden. My mother used to crochet. She would crochet for hours, making these huge blankets for everybody in the family. Everybody has one. As she crocheted, she would sing, she would read her Bible, she would pray for us, right? She was infusing those blankets with her love. That was her mindfulness practice. That was her way of restoring herself and returning to herself. So I actually want to invite the attendees to put in the chat, what do your family mindfulness practices look like? Maybe the word mindfulness wasn't in there. Nobody probably said to you, okay, come on, we're going to practice some mindfulness right now. But maybe when you all sat down and had family dinner and you all start talking and really being present to one another and deeply engaged with all this joy and openness, maybe that was your practice. Or if you just sit by the window, right, and watch the cars go by and breathe and tune in to your body, maybe that's your mindfulness practice. So it can look a number of ways. It's really more the quality and the intention with which we bring to something versus a particular something. I hope that's clear.
So clear. And as you asked that question, it made me think about church as well. Um, my family is Pentecostal, Apostolic,
Mm-hmm.
Holiness, Church of God in Christ, so the whole Holy Rollers, all of that.
Yes.
And one of the things in terms of mindfulness, as I'm sitting here thinking, was the weekly prayer service. So you
Mm-hmm.
had church on Sunday, but you also had Bible study during the week. But then
Yes.
there was a day of the week just for prayer.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's usually like Wednesday, Tuesday or Wednesday nights, they would come together just to pray.
Yes. Yes.
That was the purpose, just to pray
Mm-hmm.
every single week.
Mm-hmm.
And that is ritual. It was definitely ritual.
Absolutely.
Um, I'm seeing in the chat someone mentioned singing, listening to jazz, people
Yes.
watching definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Gardening, Kalechi shares gardening.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Journaling,
mhm.
painting, right? We can bring
And
a mindful quality
mhm,
to all of
mhm.
those things. Even cleaning our home.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think you touched upon hair care, like doing one's hair.
Yeah.
Like you're talking about doing your daughter's hair, but like doing hair. They need to call them beauty salons, right? But
Mm-hmm.
it's like that restoring and the healing nature of even just being in a salon or even the barber shop,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
where a
Mm-hmm.
lot of conversations are had, and it's a sacred space for us
Exactly.
as Black people.
Exactly.
Someone says cooking together.
That's a great practice. It's a great way to be mindful. The, the one thing that I really appreciate about the way mindfulness has been defined in this cultural context is uplifting that aspect of non judgment and gentleness. Because as people with a particular historical and lived experience in this culture, we have learned to be very judgmental of ourselves. We are brought up in an environment that devalues, dehumanizes us from the jump, right? So all of these are exercises or ways of being mindful. And I would invite us to really amplify that quality of non judgment, gentleness, and tenderness, right? So for example, we could be doing our hair and very present to it. But what are the thoughts, right? Is it judgment? Are you beating yourself up? Are you somehow really sort of, are you being negative towards yourself because your hair is not straight, or you don't think you have good hair, or, you sort of inherited that narrative around black hair, right? So it's more than just paying attention and being present. It is being present with the attitude of non-judgment, gentleness, compassion, tenderness, all of those things. So as you're having a conversation with your partner, with your spouse, are you just waiting for them to finish their point so you can jump in with your point and clobber them? Or are you really sitting back saying, okay, let me listen with curiosity. Let me listen with non-judgment. Let me really try to understand my partner's perspective, right? So that's the difference. That is a key and critical difference to do the engagement, to do the activity, the cleaning, the doing hair, the being together, the telling stories, the having conversation, the singing, the praying, with an attitude, with a particular kind of attitude of non judgment, tenderness, openness. And that is something that I think we really need to extend to ourselves a lot more, a lot more.
On that same line, you talk about child rearing, and I wonder how we as adults, because I'm also an educator, so how we as adults who have children, how we could intentionally model this emotional regulation
Mm-hmm.
where it's well, we're doing it for ourselves, right? But also as a model
Mm-hmm.
for younger people to see for them how to regulate their own emotions. What are your thoughts around that? Like still being true and genuine, but
Mm-hmm.
also being intentional about the example that we set for our children.
Yeah, I think it's really important. And I think that we can be honest with our children, right? And we can help them understand that we are a work in progress and we are learning as well. Um, and we can share with them our process. I'm thinking back to a conversation I had with my daughter now, who's now 17. I had a conversation with her about something the other day, and she got very upset. And I came back and I said, I could have delivered that message in a different way. And I apologize. I could have been a lot more thoughtful in my delivery. And I am sorry that I hurt your feelings. Parents are not perfect and we don't always get it right, right? But in order for us to be able to do that, we really have to be comfortable and confident in who we are as parents. And we can't do the power dynamic and the ego tripping with our kids, right? I think it takes a certain level of maturity to be able to tell our young people, I made a mistake. I made an error. I could have done it better. I should have said it better, right? And I apologize. I think that's a really essential aspect to conscious child rearing. Just taking ownership and responsibility of our own behavior. And then practicing with our children, practicing emotional regulation with our children, practicing breathing with our children, helping our children explore their own interior. Are you upset about something right now? What's happening with you right now? What do you need right now? Do you need to take a nap? Do you need to go for a walk? Do you need a little bit of space, right? And not push them to do something, right? But to give them that space.
You. And then the final question, I want if you could speak a little bit about healing centered practices and how that differs from trauma informed care.
Hmm.
Just thinking about as an educator, I hear a lot, and even online, let's take social media. A lot of people talk about triggers and being triggered, and it's like everything, it sounds like not everything, but a lot is focused on traumas
Right.
and a focus on traumas and wanting to heal the trauma, but the focus being on trauma versus healing.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed that you use the term healing um, a lot, right? Which
Yeah.
I think is great. Can you just speak to perhaps some underlying differences between healing centered versus trauma informed?
Sure. Well, Dr. Sean Ginwright is one who really brought us this term healing centered pedagogy, healing centered practices. He was delivering a talk, I think, at a prison and really using a lot of the trauma informed language. And one of the young men said to him, I'm more than my trauma. I'm way more than my trauma, right? I still have gifts and questions and abilities, and I so appreciate that. Trauma informed, while it is incredibly important, sometimes it seems very reactive, and it also it just seems to sort of box you in, right? We are more than our trauma, and really, when we take a very critical look at what trauma is, this entire country, this entire experience is one of trauma. We have all been traumatized. Everyone, right? The experience of colonization, of stealing land and people is a traumatic experience. Even the practice of white supremacy, and so that is a traumatic experience. So healing centered is where I want us to get to. Right? I want us to operate from that basis that we are moving towards, we are claiming, we are uplifting, healing, and wholeness, not just responding to trauma. So it allows just a broader lens and allows us to take in different aspects of ourselves, our identity, and our history. We often say our experience as African people in this context, in this particular cultural context, is so much more than the period of enslavement. There's so much more, right? We know that we were here even before that time period, right? But, that is healing centered. It broadens the lens. It widens the lens and allows us to just operate from a different core, right? Rather than presuming, and I'll say that healing centered, it includes a trauma informed approach, but it doesn't stop with that. It doesn't stop with that. So it allows for questions and imagination and developing an identity that goes beyond trauma.
All right. And actually, we have one more question.
Okay.
Um, and that question coming from Linda is, how significant is self-love relative to mindfulness?
Oh, honey. It's incredibly significant, right? I think mindfulness can support our self love practice, our self love journey, right? It's more than a practice, it's a journey of self love. When you live in a place that constantly tells you you are not lovable, you're not beautiful, it's very important. And I think in order for us to engage those dimensions of gentleness and curiosity, self love needs to be in there. The compassion that we want to practice is not just outwardly facing compassion, it is the compassion for ourselves. Understanding that we are growing and learning and hopefully doing better every day, so that we can then extend that to others. I
Okay, and someone asked about negative messages. How do we handle negative messages, or what if there are negative messages from within the household, i.e., a parent, or even from within oneself?
mm-hmm. I think that's why it's really important for us to have healing centered practitioners in our community, healing centered educators, culturally conscious educators, and therapists, and so forth. It's not quite as easy, I guess, for a child to access some of those other helpers or people who can teach us differently, right? Who can teach them differently. So it's important for us as adults to be that person. I wrote an essay published some time ago, and I said that every encounter I have with a black youth is a healing centered encounter, because I don't know what they're hearing at home. I know some of the things that I heard at home, they were not always positive. They were not always affirmative. They were not, right? My family has had a whole lot of trauma, and I got some of that messaging. And so when I became older, high school student, college student, I started moving in some other directions and seeking out some different information about myself. And that is where I think our African spirituality comes in, and that includes Christianity, because that is also ours, liberatory Christianity, right? That is where, the historical teachings and so forth come into play, the culturally affirmative and culturally grounded practitioners, therapists, nurses, doctors, or what have you. We all need to be that healing centered person in the community, because yes, there are still lots of negative messaging in Black households, right? A lot of us still need healing. And so let's be that healed person that a young person can come to for guidance and for some support.
Starting with the self, starting with the self. Okay. Well, family, that is going to conclude tonight's program. And I'm going to say thank you all for joining us. Thank you for being a part of Wisdom Wednesday for 2025. We are planning a great new lecture series for 2026. Come next month, we do welcome you to join us with Dr. Jerome Page. And Dr. Jerome Page also speaks about actually meditation and yoga. So, another form of mindfulness, or within that same vein of mindfulness. So, that will be January 21st. So, we invite you to join us as we continue our discussions on topics, again, that's meant to elevate us as a people. I will. We will be posting the new schedule on our website, ikgculturalresourcecenter.com. I want to again thank everyone for joining us. Dr. Chapman has put her email, no, your IG in the chat. There's also the link for her song, and also there's a virtual retreat taking place on Sunday.
Yeah.
And okay, and her email is in the chat. So
Email me
definitely make sure.
whatever you want.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for this wonderful
Thank you.
presentation.
Thank you so much.
Yes,
It's been a joy to be here. I appreciate you. Thank you.
wonderful. And I do want to give you an opportunity for any closing remarks for the evening.
Just thank you as you all, as we close out this year, even if you can't come to the winter solstice retreat, I hope you'll spend some of that time between December 21st and the 24th, just really sitting with yourself, meditating, energizing your intentions for the new year, and also just sort of recapping the year, the lessons, releasing some of the old stuff, the regrets, do some forgiveness work, do some journaling. You all know that is you can't be in Baba Tony Browder's community and not know the spiritual significance of the winter solstice. So I just want to remind you,
Yes,
do something during that
yes.
period to get yourself ready for next year.
Thank you for bringing that up. Yes, the solstice is coming up. Happy solstice, everyone. Um, If you are looking for this video, it will be on Tony Browder's YouTube page, Karak Browder YouTube page. So you will be able to watch the replay of this video. Thank you all for joining us. Have a great evening, a wonderful holiday season, a beautiful solstice, and we
Yes,
look forward to seeing you in the new year.
yes, indeed. Take care, everyone.
All right.
Odabo.
Good